Yo guys, it's your boy Kavi. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make some crazy gospel samples from scratch. All that you're going to need for this is some VSTs in your own voice. This loop will be available for free download in the description down below. But before we get into it, let's break down the mindset that you need going into making a soul sample. One of the most important things for soul samples is the instrumentation. Back when they were making these records, most of the instruments were acoustic, so you want to stick to guitars, pianos, basses, violins, cellos, trumpets, glockenspiels, vocals, live drums, and organs. Back in the time that they were recording these records, a lot of the instrumentation was just acoustic, so you want to stick with real instruments for these kind of melodies. A lot of these soul samples were also recorded at a much slower BPM than what they're actually played at in modern music. So I'd recommend building your soul samples at around 120 to 130 BPM and then speeding and pitching it up to get that sound that you're looking for. With all that said, I'm going to show you guys a couple go-to chord progressions for these kind of samples. This is the first chord progression. This is probably one of the most simple chord progressions, but you can get so much out of it, and I find myself using this chord progression in probably at least half of my soul samples. All that you're doing is 2 minor chords, and one is pitched up 5 after the other one. As you can see here, I started with a C minor, C, D sharp, G, and I put the C in the bass as well to thicken up the sound. I played that 2 times. I took this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the end right here, I just went 1 note down in the scale and I built a little major chord just to transition, but you don't even need this. One of my next go-to chord progressions for these samples is this right here. This is super dope for some chopped up drums. The theory behind this one is pretty simple as well. I'll build it from scratch so you guys can see. I start out with a minor chord, and then I put a 7th. I'm going to copy this chord and I'm going to put it up 2. After that, I'm going to go up 1 more note, and then I'm going to build a major 7th chord. Elongate this one, and then I'm going to copy bass notes and put them down an octave. I've also gotten a lot of mileage out of this chord progression. This is the next chord progression. The theory behind this one is, again, starting with a C minor chord. I go down in the scale to the next chord, which is a B flat major. And I just repeat this over and over. So that's just those 2 chords playing. And then it goes back to this chord, C minor, back to a B flat major. And then it goes down 1 more to a G sharp major. So it's really only 3 chords. Without knowing any music theory, you want to keep these chord progressions pretty simple and let the instrumentation and the vocals really do the work for these. But now that we've went over the chords, let's get right into this sample. This is what the finished sample sounds like. So as you can tell, it sounds super dope. It is my vocals on there, so if they're not the best, don't hold me. But first thing that I like to start with on a lot of my soul samples is a drum break. What I do is I go into the sampler here in Logic. I use this Motown Revisited kit, and I built this pattern from scratch. So it sounds super spaced out. There's a bunch of room to add some stuff on it, and you don't want to overdo the drum breaks because that takes away room for someone else to add their own drums. The next thing that I like to add is a bass line, just to kind of get a direction for where the sample's going to go. So it's already sounding nice and kind of has a nice groove to it. To kind of enhance that, I found this hi-hat loop on Splice and layered it with the drum break. After that, I added my own vocal to this. And my advice for doing this is to just kind of freestyle melodies, record them, and as soon as you come up with something that you like, write some lyrics to it. To find some good lyrics to sing if you can't write anything, I would just go on YouTube and listen to some old soul music and just take some inspiration from some of the words that they use. This is what I ended up coming up with. And my mother told me, you're gonna be someone. Someone. So as you can tell, I really can't sing, but the way that I like to finesse this in Logic is by going in right here to the flex time and choosing the flex pitch mode. And then I grab everything, right click, and then press set to perfect pitch. What this does is put everything perfectly on pitch, but there might be some notes that are out of key, so you just want to play around and drag everything until it sounds exactly how you want it to. After I had the vocal in key and in time, I went in and put some effects on it. And my mother told me, you're gonna be someone. So it's already sounding a lot better. It has that vintage vibe. And the way that I got that is this reverb right here. It's like a small room reverb from Valhalla Vintage Verb. And it kind of gives that tape slap delay vibe that a lot of the vocals had back in the day. I also added some EQ, compression, and a little bit of delay, but nothing crazy right there. From here, I had a really dope idea for a soul sample. So all that I had to do was build some chords off that bass line that I made earlier. And this is what I came up with. This chord progression is a variation of one of the chords I showed earlier in this video. The G sharp minor right here, and then if you put that down, this is the same G sharp minor pitched down 5, and then I took the root note and transposed it up an octave just to give it a nicer voicing, because you want the notes to play as close to each other as possible, because it's more realistic that a piano player would hit the same note, because it's more realistic for a piano player to play it. After that, I just added a little accent note right here, did another G sharp minor chord here, and then went down to this major chord, and then I went down to this major chord right here just to transition into the next part of the chord progression. I took those chords and I copied it to this stock Logic horns plugin. This is what it sounds like right now. I thought that these trumpets really gave it a nice kind of cheap vintage vibe, but I feel like it really fit well in the sample. I did the same thing right here, and I copied the chords into an organ, and this is what this sounds like. Another big tip that I have for these kind of melodies is really layering the chords to make it sound thick in like a full song, which is what I did here with the organ, trumpet, and piano. The next thing that I added were these strings, which are from the East-West, just from the East-West Hollywood Strings Gold library. All that I did for these is copy the bass notes of the chords. I just left it simple like that. You just want the strings to kind of be super long, and they're just kind of a nice high texture to the melody. After that, I bounced everything down to an audio file. Just to save CPU. And also, working with audio files to pitch is a lot better sounding than pitching up to MIDI, because it gives that gritty soul sample vibe that you want. Once I had all those elements, the sample was pretty much done. I just added this glockenspiel from the Mallet Flux bank from Contact, and I just took off the effects. Wanted it to sound dry, and this is what it sounds like. All I did for this was copy the root notes and added a little bit of a transition note right here. These are really just accent notes to kind of help add some pizzazz to the melody, if that makes sense. I bounced those down into audio, and then I did some leveling of the sounds. I added some reverb here and there. I forgot to mention I also added these chimes right here and this crash right here just to hit on the one to add some of that soul vibe and also add a little bit of impact whenever it hits. After that, all I did was add this little drum break in the beginning, which is from Saint's free drum kit, which is super fire. You should definitely get that. Once I had all that, I bounced it all into one audio file, and I pitched it up 7 semitones, and it sounds like this. So it sounds super dope at this BPM, but it's not the vibe that we're going for, which is exactly why I made this at 130 so that we could speed it up, and it just warps it in a way that makes it sound good. So we speed it up to 168 up here. The camera just died. And then it turns into this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you want a part 2 on how I made this beat, then let me know in the comments down below and I'll show you how I chopped that and flipped that into a full beat. If you want some loops similar to this one, don't forget to use my code KXVI30 on loopstash.com for 30% off. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video and comment what you want next down below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.